Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to International Forum. I am Wilson Omasha. Today is all about the Ukraine-Russian war, 2 years and counting, and the war is still raging on. The big question now is there an end in sight for the raging war between Russia and Ukraine? Analysts definitely will throw more light on that. Before that, let's take a look at some stories making rounds globally. We're going to the U.S. where Donald Trump is trying to upturn, his court case about taxation. Alleged fraud case by U.S. President Donald Trump appeals as 112,000 a day interest accrues. Because I was talking about taxation, talking about tax fraud, and Uncle Benjamin, don't joke with Uncle Benjamin when it comes to taxation in the U.S. Now that is like a serious case hanging in his neck. And the more time passes by, the more the interest rate will increase. And Donald Trump is like saying that all these are meant to deter him from his political career, to deter him from becoming the #1 man in the United States of America. Don't forget, he won the primaries in the landslide. He's still winning, and now he's like, the candidate, because they don't see the other one coming out tops anyway. And right now, according to him, they choose to forward all these things against him to prevent him from focusing more on issue-based campaign rather than going from one court to the other, trying to free himself of all these court cases. He's sick and tired of it, but he's saying he will not let this one rest. He needs to go out there to speak his own mind, to see if they can reconsider, because all these trumped-up charges, according to him, they are truly abysmal, and definitely they are not called for. But what do you feel about the stance of Donald Trump? It's all about alleged fraud case in terms of taxation. Moving away from Donald Trump, moving straight down to Israel, where U.S. President Joe Biden is talking about a ceasefire between Israel and, of course, Hamas in the Israel-Gaza war. Joe Biden hopes for ceasefire by next week, because Israel said they will not leave any stone unturned until they get all the hostages captured by the Hamas militia. But for where things are like going right now, it's like Israel is going all out to really erase, so to speak, Hamas from the surface of the earth. They are saying until Hamas is out of the picture, they will not have peace. And they keep on going forward, pressing forward, even going towards where we have camps, even going towards where we have, displaced persons occasioned by war. Despite the fact that the U.S. cautioned about such a cooperation, Israel military, I don't think they are following that rule. Because you see children being hungry, thousands dead already, and the war rages. And the world is like saying enough is enough to this war. Ceasefire for us to know what we are doing to separate this Hamas group from the innocent people, because the innocent are being caught in the crossfire. But Israel is not backing down from what they said for them to have peace. Hamas must be taken out of the equation, and that is why they're going all out to make sure that their operation in Gaza is 100%. Don't forget that the UN said there should be a ceasefire, but US vetoed it, saying Israel can just continue, and that didn't go that well with China. China got angry and said, look, what you guys are doing is wrong. This can be likened to genocide. You have to stop. You've killed more than they've killed. Talk about thousands right now. Why not calm down? Let's settle this. So Biden said, probably next week, there is going to be a time of respite, a time of ceasefire, a time for the head to work, a time for there to be peace, so they can know the next action to be taken in course of this war between Israel and Hamas. Finally, on news around the world, move straight down to Germany. Between Poland and, of course, Germany, the borders, guess what? The farmers are protesting. Polish farmers block highway at border crossing with Germany. What is their anger? All about food transportation. Yes, the method, the way, the denomination gotten from the proceeds of food transportation. And mind you, without food, you can't talk politics. Without food, you can't talk war. Without food, you can't talk economy. Food is essential. That is why the farmers are saying that, look, you have to come to terms with what we are saying. If not, no food will come from point A and go to point B, because we are all in this together. If farmers can protest for better pay, for better conditions between Poland and, of course, Germany, tell me the importance that one can really place on food. But under the two governments will surely work out things to make sure that the blockade is being taken off, because right now it's causing serious gridlock economically. No one goes in, no one goes out. Economic transaction between the two countries along that border has been dampened already. But I trust the German government and, of course, the Polish government, they can really reach a compromise to make sure that there's a free flow of traffic of goods and services along that particular border. Well, straight to the talk for today. Help me here in the studio, a legal practitioner, political affairs commentator. Join me to welcome Barrister Henry Wanzo. Barrister, welcome to International Forum. I appreciate your coming.
Viewers at home, once more, I congratulate you for being Nigerians.
All right.
I'm waiting. Thanks for the opportunity.
For being Nigerians?
Yeah, for
real?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that later off camera, okay? And of course, very close to him, he is a lecturer in Uniben. And when you start analyzing the issues, you get to feel that, man, are we in class? Definitely when he's around, it's like we are in class all over again. Let me to welcome Don Felix Osarime. I appreciate the comment, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
At home, good afternoon.
All right. 2 years and counting. The war still rages on. You are thinking it's going to be a surgical operation. The Russians will just come in, do one or two things, set up to hand over, to surrender, and of course Ukraine will just lie tummy up and say, Russia, dear Russia, what do you want, your wish or command? But it didn't go that way. They met stiff resistance despite the fact that, according to a report right now, over 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed in course of this battle. And some are saying Ukraine just cannot win this war because you don't have what it takes to stand against the Russian assault. Let me come to you, Don. What do you feel about this? 2 years on, no end in sight.
Taking a cue from our experiences in global politics and in a situation where powerful states want to flex power, I want to make bold to say that it's going to be a long drawn-out contest. One, on account of the fact that this is a conventional war on the side of the Russians, because the Russians openly claimed that it's a special military action. They did not say it was a war. But we know when people are being killed and you are using weapons, it's war. Then on the side of the Ukrainians, they are at home and someone decided to invade their sovereign territory. So they have to put up a resistance. We cannot fault them in that regard, but they have deployed both conventional tactics and guerrilla tactics. Occasionally, they've launched some drone attacks into the Russian territory, but not on a sustained level. So it's more of a powerful state and a less powerful state in the contest. But even the best generals can always tell you when war will start. They will not know the exact day the war will end. And when we look at it from that perspective, I will also let you know quickly that if this war is to end, the onus lies on Russia.
On Russia?
Yes, it is Russia that initiated the military action. Russia can also end it. If we use the underdog argument, it is not the Ukrainians that started the conflict, so they cannot also end it. They are in a defensive position. Russia is the aggressor here. Russia is pushing a narrative, and it is the Russians that can say, at this point, we have achieved some objectives, because openly, they claim that the primary objective is to ensure that Ukraine does not constitute a threat to their strategic interest as far as NATO is concerned, because they felt that Ukraine joining NATO will bring NATO to their back door. That was the only claim they made that they have openly insisted must not be done. But that claim has not been achieved, because Ukraine is almost now fully into NATO. So if that is the objective that Russia set out to achieve, Russia has not achieved that objective. The pummeling, the pounding, the display of high-tech weapons, even the use of the hypersonic missile, which Americans were praying that Russia will use, and Russians, I will not say stupidly, I will say it was a tactical error. You brought out your best weapon, your latest weapon, you have deployed it. So they now know the limitations. And one funny thing with weapon development is that the real strength of a weapon is only known in the course of a war. So it has been used, it has been tested. The Americans now know its capacity, its capability. They will likely be making something better. And Russia is busy depleting her own armaments. Americans have not started using their own. They are still using the ones they have accumulated in NATO. NATO has a huge reserve. Some of those weapons are outdated. So testing them, using them in Russia is a way of saying, okay, these things have been piled up, where we have a place to test them. Of course, when you are making armaments, as you are flushing the old stock, you have to be restocking.
Restocking.
The Ukrainians will feel that, oh, okay, we are fighting for our nation, but Ukrainians are being used as guinea pigs too. On both sides, the Russians are testing, the Americans and NATO are also testing. And that is why you find that they've not actually put ground troops into Ukraine. They are deploying technology, they are deploying moral support, they are deploying all kinds of efforts to sustain the resistance by the Ukrainians. And as I said, when we had this discussion 2 years ago, when the imbroglio started,
yes,
that the Russians will not win this debacle because it is conventional. Just as you can shoot, the Ukrainians can also shoot back at you. If it was nuclear, well, the matter would have been resolved long ago. But Russia cannot go nuclear against Ukraine because the effect will even affect Russia. Is it the thunder clouds that will come from a nuclear holocaust? It will affect Russia because Russia and Ukraine, they are next door neighbors. They were once one country. Then the Americans will not sit back and watch Russia declare deploy any nuclear facility against Ukraine. They will react. And that will be the war of all wars. So it's not going to work out. So as a conventional war, the Russians are not going to win. But the Russians can step back.
They can step back?
Yes, they can, because they initiated the process, they are the aggressor, and they are more powerful.
All right.
And when you want to end a fight, it is not the weakest party that you will tell to stop the fight. It is the strongest party.
Okay, I will come back to you, Don. Barrister, you heard him. All they started 2 years ago. Russia was trying to fight to protect the territorial integrity, and it all escalated to this particular situation that we are in right now. 2 years and counting. Over 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in the course of this battle. Russia also have suffered losses, but some are saying that Ukraine cannot win this war because of the planning, because of the pressure, because of the assault against them occasioned by the Russian aggressors. Take it up from there.
But again, you also understand that a war of this nature, just as it has started, you always find allies. That is the truth. And some days back, the European Union are looking at the angle. It was the French President Macron was the one saying it. They are looking at an angle where the European allies will try to give kind of support to Ukraine in terms of personnel. And their angle of this is that they too are looking at it from the point of view that they don't want Russia to win the war. But I know of a truth, by the time they decide to give that truce, support in terms of truce, it will escalate the already existing fight that is going on between Russia and Ukraine. And remember also that when Russia was actually going, it didn't say that it was going to be war, because there was a kind of a special intervention and they look at it from that angle. But unfortunately for them, 2 years has gone. They have not been able to achieve that primary aim which they felt at the point in time they were entering into this game. Because the Russian president was looking at an angle that within a short space of time, this will give him. But unfortunately for him, a man who is at home waiting for you to attack are also want to respond, and which they have done, even based on the support they have gathered. But I also see that at the end of the day, because they have lost so many persons, you know, during the course of this war. But I know of the truth that Russia will not be able to win this war because of the special interest, especially America and other European unions who on their own are support. Over 20 countries in the European Union, though they have not ruled out the possibility of they supplying troops, but you know of the truth that they too, they have, every of these allies, they have their own common interest.
So because of interest right now.
That is it. That is it. Because of their own common interest.
All right. I will come back to you, Barrister Henry Wanzel. Now, Don Felix, you get to realize that in course of this war, Russia have made so much advance into Ukrainian territory, especially from the Donbass region. Don't forget the conditions given by Russians to the Ukrainian military and, of course, to Zelensky. Move away from the Donbass region. Disarm your military. Go home. 3 conditions given to them. As it stands right now, according to the report, Russia says they've already won the war in the sense that their aim in the war is to secure this region. And then, according to report, they've done. According to reporters, what the Ukrainians are doing is to regain this or recapture this region from the Russians. Do you think it's going to happen? Don't forget there was one stronghold and it's overrun right now by Russian troops. They've, like, you know, accomplished the mission of the war. And they're concentrating on it, protecting their territory. So what do you feel about that?
There is what we call ego tripping.
Ego tripping?
Yes. When powerful states make claims, then they can go for afterthoughts. When the claims are not fully achievable, you modify it. Yeah. What did the president of Russia say on 24th of February 2022, when the debacle started? That their primary objective was to ensure that Ukraine does not join NATO. That was the critical factor in the engagement. The issue of Donbass region is not new. It's been there. It's not only Donbass region that they've been dragging with Ukraine.
But I've gotten it now from the report.
No, it's not over. You can't just say they've gotten it. People that, well, there's collateral damage on both sides. Civilians, foreigners, visitors. But in military terms, are the Russians fully in control of those regions? In full military terms. Have you been able to break the back of the Ukrainian resistance? Can you say factually that Ukraine has now signed a document ceding territory to Russia? The military angle is not the political angle. So there's a military angle, which is the contest. There's a political angle, which is the agreement. Then there's a diplomatic angle, which is where the allies and others will come to a consensus. Russia has demanded Crimea before. Russia has made claims on Crimea, even annexed it. But it has not been accepted by international convention. And even Ukraine has not given up on Crimea. Mariupol, where they fought, is part of Crimea. Where they ship grains from is opposite Crimea. Those areas are still in contestation. When you say you have given up, when you say you have won fully, is when you now have full total control. There is de facto ownership, there is de jure ownership. So it's both legal and political. So you may have won the military part of the test. Doesn't mean you have won it all. And I am going to say with all sense of modesty, without fear of contradiction, that the Russians have not won that area fully. The Donbass region is just one of the contested areas. There are other areas that they are contesting. And if you say, because that part is close to where you have always had the dissidents, that's those Ukrainians who were feeling more comfortable with being on the side of Russia, it's not a given. It's not a given that Russians have won. Then let me quickly establish a fact here that the mortalities in the conflict, that's the number of soldiers that have died, is not even a critical factor right now. It is your deployment capacity, your arms and armament that will turn the tide of the war. It's not a matter of number of soldiers. Even
you need soldiers to operate those armaments. You need soldiers.
I'm coming to that point. Okay. But technology has gone to the point where you don't need 100 soldiers to shoot 100 guns. Some of these things are now directed by artificial intelligence. The drones that are flying from Russia into Ukraine and flying from Ukraine to Russia, is it soldiers that fly these drones? Drones are unmanned aircraft. They do more damage than physical contact. The way you need soldiers is to hold the places on ground. And that's where Russians are spending more than the Ukrainians. Because you are moving into Ukrainian territory. You take a fight to a man's country. You will spend more to stay there. The Ukrainians are at home. So it's not going to be an easy war for Russia. And the Ukrainians have not started fighting back. They are still, I use the word, I say they are in defensive position. Till now, they are within their territory. They are defending their territory. You are the one bringing the fight to them. So you will spend more to hold them down. A man that is holding another man down cannot also get up.
He will not get up. He will not get up. He will remain there.
All right, now for what is that Macron suggested,
Yes.
bringing troops to Ukraine to assist in the war. Because don't forget that Zelensky cried out some years ago, said they lack manpower, they lack the weapons. Even when they were given weapons, they were crying over manpower. And Russians are taking this as an advantage. Don't forget winter and all that. So they've immersed more land. But like what is said, they have to defend it and not totally taking over this region, so to speak. If this comes true, that troops were like sent to aid Ukrainians, what do you think is going to be the beginning or the mother of all wars?
Well, you see, in every contest, you always find those who are in support and those who are in against. When the crisis started, Americans, especially the Republicans, were not in support of the aid that was being given. But now you are almost finding a balance between the progressives and the Republicans in terms of their support over the action of the American government in support to what is happening in Ukraine. But you also find out that when the crisis started, some of these countries, especially the European unions, many of them were not, they are neither here nor there.
Not there.
But you also find out now that with what Macron had said a few days back, that though he's not ruling that, because he said it is not ruled out that troops will be, going to support the Ukrainians. Because on their own part, they are saying that they don't want Russia to win the war. They have their reasons. Their reasons being that sometimes you'll find that because you are a bigger nation, and then you now want to lord it over me. Just as my friend here rightly said, that they wanted to be part of NATO, which was the primary issue, because that was where it started from, that if Ukraine is, allowed to become part of NATO, just as Sweden is now the 32nd country in NATO, some few days back, they were, that it will have an effect on them. Effect on the fact that they are looking at the Americans, because that is the issue. It is this struggle for supremacy that is bringing all these issues, as it were. And then smaller nations are now used as a kind of a guinea pig, in trying to achieve these selfish interests of some of these bigger nations. Because ordinarily, I don't see what Putin is looking for. That 2 years after, and he knows quite well that there's no way this war will end so soon because of the interest from America, the interest from the European unions who are thinking of acting as a support to Ukraine. So it is going to drag on for another 1 year if something does not happen to stop the war, as it were.
Dragging on for another 1 year or thereabout. But now they use the comment, we don't want Russia to win this war. Are the Russians really winning the war from analysis? Don't forget they've sacked so many cities, so many villages, so many towns. Take it up from there, Don.
The issue of winning a war is not the issue of a military victory alone. I explained that there are three components in a contest of this nature. There's a political component, there is a military component, there's a diplomatic component. The diplomatic component is even more difficult. That's where you find allies and enemies playing the cards that you will least expect them to play. Now, Russia is on now a very powerful state. We are not in dispute about that. Russia also has allies. In this particular contest, you have Iran allying with Russia, China allying with Russia, The Chinese are waiting actually for Russians to exhaust themselves so that they can now step into the game as the peacemaker. The Chinese have occasionally called on the West not to make Russia lose face. The Chinese have openly said that the West, they are the ones rallying up the Russians that made the Russians to go into Ukraine. What the Chinese has never openly done is to ask the Russians to step back. So it means they have taken side with Russia. North Korea is on the side of Russia in this debacle. Few African states that, like South Africa and Burkina Faso, Guinea, that had their own internal local problems within their sub-region, they've also taken the side of Russia. But the majority of Western Europe are on the side of Ukraine. America is on the side of Ukraine. Israel will be on the side of Ukraine. It will be automatic. Germany, France, Britain, Italy,
but don't forget that Russia don't have any issue with Israel.
I know.
That's what they said.
I'm building a scenario.
Okay.
I'm building that is why it's not going to be bigger than the picture of Russia and Ukraine just ending the matter. It has now escalated into a global matter because when Russia stopped the sale of grain, was it Ukrainians alone that were hungry? It was a global crisis that Russia almost created. Ukraine is the grain basket of the world, not Europe. The world. Good. Ukraine also produces a lot of tin that is used all over the world, and steel. So Ukrainian economy is very robust. Russia has also a very robust economy, but Russians are not dependent on Ukraine because Russia has vast land that she can tap from within. And she also has a huge market. That's why the Russian economy is not negatively affected by the war. Even with all the sanctions slammed on Russia, Russians have huge reserves. Russia also punished the whole of Europe by stopping the supply of gas. Now, this is now international politics. It's no longer Russia versus Ukraine. You have made a lot of people suffer for what you wanted to achieve, which you could have achieved using alternative methods, like piling up pressure, by even making the Donbas region hell for the Ukrainians. That would have been an easier way. You don't even need to go into Ukraine. You simply fund resistance groups that will be fighting with the Ukrainian government to the point the Ukrainian government will not have time to even go and sign any document to join into.
Exactly.
Those are better options. But the Russians wanted to bring out the big fist, and they did.
Oh, you just want to go for a break. We'll return. We will definitely continue with this discussion. 2 years on, no end in sight between Russia and Ukraine debacle. Don't go away. Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. If you just joined us, this is International Forum, and we are taking a look at the Russia-Ukraine war. 2 years and counting. It all started February 24, and what is like saying, is there an end in sight to this debacle? Is there an end in sight to this war? Don't forget that this war is only contributing to what the world is suffering today economically. Price of grain, gas, fuel, you just name it, they've gone so high. And there is a connection between the war between Russia and Ukraine and all of this going on globally. And I have with me here in the studio, University Don, calling me Don, Felix Osayane, and of course a legal practitioner, Barrister Henry Owozo. Well, before we enter that, but please continue with your line of thought in this particular discussion.
We're at the point where I explained that the Russians have brought out the big fist.
Yes. That
they would have used other methods that we are conversant with. Most times, powerful states do not confront less powerful states openly. We can take a cue from history. America went to Vietnam. Eventually, the Americans were disgraced out of Vietnam. Russia, as USSR, went to Afghanistan. They were disgraced out of Afghanistan. The USA went to Afghanistan. They pulled out after 20 years. So sometimes it is not how many boots you put on ground or the weaponry. It is how you conscientize the people. And this is why the ideological part of the contest is much more difficult, because that is psychological. You are trying to modify the behavior of a whole generation of people to suit a particular way of behavior that is alien to them. It will be very difficult. But in this particular situation between Ukraine and Russia, they've been one country. So the issue of modification may not really be the challenge. The challenge here is that the Ukrainians have openly said they do not want to step back from the brink because the Russians have pulled them to that brink. And if you use the underdog argument in West European politics is that the underdog is always the one they will support.
The underdog?
They always support the underdog. Even though the underdog may even be wrong. But they will say, okay, you are more powerful. Why don't you show more consideration?
Yeah.
Show more restraint. Because it is the way of the world to judge the most powerful, to expect that the most powerful should be moral, should be considerate. Meanwhile, if it was the Ukrainians that had this power, how would they have reacted to Russia? We cannot say right now. But in this particular instance, the Russians are not going to win this debacle. The only way it can end, the Ukrainians could now say, oh, we are exhausted. We don't want to continue. But when there's a lot of support coming to Ukraine, a lot of arms coming in, a lot of welfare materials brought in from all over the world, particularly from Western Europe and America, then most of the Ukrainians that left the country have been given safe haven in the whole of Western Europe and even to America.
To America.
So why should they stop the war?
All right.
They have nothing to lose.
All right.
It's the pummeling that is going on right now by Russia. There's already planned for reconstruction of Ukraine by Western power. So Ukraine is going to be rebuilt into a more modern and better developed country.
And it's not free of charge.
We agree. Even the Russians will pay part of that money.
Are you sure about that?
Look at it from that. Don't worry. If I have the floor again,
sure,
I will
you
explain
will.
how the Russians will
Sure,
pay part of that money.
Sure. Now let's take a look at this instance where Don said that this war will only end if Russia chooses to stop, or if Ukraine chooses to tell the world that they're exhausted, they're tired of all this with Russian condition. But some are saying that it is approaching that level already. Don't forget that Zelensky had to travel from one country to the other soliciting for support until this Hamas-Israel war broke. I started complaining that, look, you guys are distracted. As long as Israel-Hamas war is on, we're not getting the full attention that we need. I don't get this stronghold from Mariupol and the rest of them. There is Advik, I've forgotten of that country or town in Ukraine that was fought over by Russian and Ukrainian troops. And of course, Russia right now, they've had the upper hand. Do you see Ukraine backing out due to lack of support or total support? Or do you see Russia saying enough is enough, let's go back home? Like what are your plans?
You see, the truth still remains that in a contest of this nature, just as I rightly said, because of the interest, because sometimes you find out that people, when you, and there's an issue, you will have people for and you have people for against.
Yes.
And that is what you find out in this situation, as it were. There are people who are supporting Russia, there are people who are supporting Ukraine. Because of their interest. Because interest plays. In politics, generally, interest. It is interest. It's not any other thing. And these ones that are showing interest in the other parties, as it were, because of what they tend to gain at the end of the whole exercise, they will not want it to end because ego has come in. I will not want this war to end this way. That is why the European Union somehow are saying that we don't want Russia to win this war. And for the fact that they don't want Russia to win this war, they are also considering, just as I said, that they are considering, you know, giving a support in terms of troops. And I know that some of these countries are ready to give out troops to ensure that at the end of the day, this war is not won by
But
Russia.
don't forget that some of these countries don't want their troops to be depleted.
No.
The more you give, you have to restrict, like what he said.
I know.
And no man in his right sense wants to go to war.
Accepted, but because of the interest that is involved, because you look at the interest, at the end of the day, you have one thing or the other to benefit, either as a nation or because for the fact that I support this particular group. Because every of the countries, they have their own allies. And for the fact that America, on its own part, will have its own allies. And those who are in support of America will always want to play that role because they see them as a big brother. When it becomes necessary for one support or the other, America will always be there for them. And those who want to be on the side of America will always be there. Just as China and others will want to be, Iran and other states will want to be on the side of Russia. Even some African countries are in support of Russia while some are not in support of Russia because of what they will benefit at the end of the day. So you find out that the allies, like the European Union, will not sit back and watch Russia overrun Ukraine.
But it's happening already.
No, accepted it's happening, but they have already met too. They have met. Macron said they have met, and they are thinking of possibility of supporting Ukraine by supplying the troops, so that this war, at the end of the day, Russia will not win it.
Supplying of troops. Don't talk about it briefly. What if it gets to an extent whereby troops must be supplied by Europe and equipment also being supplied by Europe or America with their allies? How do you think the allies of Russia will react?
We are not taken aback by the fact that Russia already has support from Iran and from North Korea, even though she didn't ask for troop support, but she got drone support.
They bought the drones according to report. They paid for it.
Is Russia lacking in drones?
Drones?
Ask yourself that question. So Russia doesn't have enough drones now. Now I have to go and buy from Iran, a country that is dependent on Russia. I mean, look at the dynamics. You see, when you are saying you are hearing the voice of Esau and you are feeling the hand of Jacob, you begin to wonder. Sorry, the voice of Jacob, but you are feeling the hand of Esau, the hairy hand of Esau. You begin to wonder what is exactly in that. Is it that Russia does not have enough drones, that she go and get drones from Iran or from North Korea? No, it is escalation. So that at a point you can say, continuability. Okay, it was what those people brought that we used, where it wasn't really our own. At the end of the day, it's a game. And this is power politics. If there's a book called Games Nations Play. Nations play games. But they don't always follow the rules. There are rules. There are constitutive rules. There are regulative rules. In football, there are rules. Oh, you must have 11 players on the field at a time. But sometimes, can't you be suspended with a red card or a yellow card? You can be removed from the field. Injury can also remove you from the field. There are constitutive rules. There are regulative rules. The constitutive rules will tell you, the number of players must be 11. Regulative is that you cannot go and play offside. So we have rules in international relations too. Countries go into war for reasons, and in fighting the war, they can escalate it by bringing other unexpected arguments in. Now, what kind of war are we talking of? Are we talking of total war or a war of attrition? The Russians started almost as if it was total war. They launched overnight attack.
No, that's just a sting operation. That's what they use.
That's what I said. Overnight, it was supposed to be a sting operation. Or if you were to borrow German term, call it blitzkrieg, lightning war. You rush from the sky, from the ground, you attack from all sides at the same time to overwhelm your enemy. That was what the Russians started with. And they thought it would be an easy ride. Believe me, as of February 24, 2022, Putin believed that he would be able to overrun Ukraine. He believed so. At a point, are you also aware that the Russians had to bring in mercenaries? The Wagner group.
Yeah.
Russia is a superpower country, using all methods, because it is conventional war. Okay, it has left conventional war now. It is not, it's a conventional war. It has left the concept of total war. It's now a war of attrition. We will wear them out. We will pummel them to submission. The other ones are saying, okay, we will dig in. We will fight from here. How come Ukraine is sustaining its resistance? Because there is a lot of support coming from outside. So Ukrainians will not give up.
But they are saying it's not enough. That they can't win this battle.
Always the language.
They need more.
Oliver Twist asked for more.
They will continue to ask for more.
Because it's not all that you are giving them, they are using. They are keeping some in reserve. Russians are bringing their own out. The Ukrainians have not even finished using their own. They are getting more
support.
And this is going to cost money to fund. The war has not ended. It's a long drawn-out contest. As the Ukrainians are fighting from all sides, Russia will say, okay, we have taken Donbass region, we've kept this part. That is not the capital. The decision will be taken in the capital. We can say, okay, leave that one for them for a while. It is part of the game. At times in chess, you sacrifice your pawns, but you protect your king and your queen. So this is power politics. The Russians are saying we've gotten this part. The part they got was close to the part they have taken before. The heartland.
That is still the part they are asking after.
They've not taken Kharkov. Kharkov is the strongest part that is close to the capital. They've not taken that part. They've not taken Kyiv. So you cannot say you have won. It is still ongoing. A child that has not been born cannot be. You can have a name in your mind. Even if you keep telling people when I give birth first.
Before you name
so in this particular situation, the Russians also know that it is not going to be an easy ride for them. They are pulling resources too. They also depleting their resources. And weapons manufacture is not an overnight transaction.
It takes time.
It takes time. Then, sorry, quickly, we are talking of building up troops. The Western European powers that are saying they want to bring in troops, they are also part of propaganda to call the Russians to order that if you begin to do too much, if we bring in our troops, we are going to be fighting everybody. You are creating a scenario for another world war. Russia will likely be looking at what is the end game here. If we are to go to what we can call an enlarged conflict zone, can we even actually fight the whole of Europe? Because by the time you start killing Swedes, you kill Germans, you kill Frenchmen, you kill Slovenes, you are fighting the whole world. This is what will put their reserves in. Do you want that? Do you want to escalate it further?
Okay.
So it's a long drawn out.
It's a long drawn out.
The tactics is that they are fighting right now. The strategy is that you may have to look at the big picture. And what is the big picture? The European countries can threaten to bring in troops. Would they actually bring in troops? If they bring in troops and you begin to kill other Europeans, you are now having a larger theater of war.
Okay. Let me take a look at the war that is ongoing right now. The capital, Kiev, has gotten some serious hits.
Yes, they
Real
have. Yes.
serious hit. Now, if they should go on a thing that the capital will weakened, thereby making it an easy ride for the Russian troops to just accomplish their mission.
They will want to fight to get to that point. But again, the resistance will be there, just as the resistance has always been. And with Ukraine crying out that they needed more support, know that 31,000 soldiers have gone. It might even be more than. And the European unions, in the meeting they had with Macron, was saying that they are not ruling out the possibility of support in terms of troops. So, in terms of arms, they are supplying. America, on its own part, is playing its own role too. They will not sit back and watch Russia get to Kyiv, because they equally know the implication. By the time the Russians get to Kyiv, automatically, Ukraine has been overrun. The country you know as Ukraine today will no longer be there. It will now become part of Russia, as it were. But these other allies who have been there are playing their role and supporting, will not watch it to degenerate to that point. That is why in the meeting they had, 20 European countries, though all of them have not supported, as it were, the idea of sending troops.
Yes.
But I know of a truth that when it comes to a battle of this nature, and because it borders on the issue of ego, because everybody, America on its own, is playing with them, will not want Russia as one of the superpowers trying to have that upper hand when it borders on the country they are supporting. They will play their role to ensure that at the end of the day, the war does not get to Kyiv. Let it be at the point at which they are now.
But it has gone to Kiev already.
But I know, but
The kamikaze drones, hypersonic missiles,
yes.
and it's hitting on targets.
It is. Nobody is denying that fact. But the question there is, have they been able to get it? It is drone. You can throw the drone, even for Nigeria, you can throw the drone. And as long as it has a particular target you want it to get to. That is what is happening. Until you get to the point that maybe you have your ground troops getting into the country, overrun it, the government in power taking over from there, go to the radio stations, television stations, make announcements and all whatnot, that finally we have been able to overrun Zelensky and his people. But which I know is going to be very difficult, because nobody will sit at home and watch the enemy come and take you as if you are just a baby. It's going to be a war that will last. Even the Russians never believed that that war would get up to this point. They thought that as the war started, in the next 1 or 2 months, we would have been able to overrun. But unfortunately, 2 years counting, though they have made an appreciable impact, but it has not been enough for them to take over the government of Zelensky.
All right. Some say there used to be an end game in none of it, but right now is that there is no end game in sight. Take it up from there.
There always is an end game. In strategic planning, you can do what we call permutation. And by permutation, we could ask ourselves, are the Russians going to pull out? We will say it's a possibility, but they are not doing that right now. Are the Russians going to declare that, okay, they are exhausted in the debacle, they want to pull back? They may also, both parties may be looking for an excuse for them to even end the matter. Third-party intervention, which has not come right now. It could even be that, oh, they will say, okay, the Gaza-Israel war is becoming too disturbing. Let us go and focus on China. All of you pull out from this one. Ukraine and Russia, go for a truce, sign an armistice. Okay, no victor, no vanquished. All these are possibilities. It may happen. It may not happen. But what we do know right now is that the Europeans have not given up on Ukraine. That's a critical support system. The Ukrainians have not agreed that they will cede their country. That is also a very critical element in this contestation. And most importantly, even if Kyiv is to fall today, they can have a government in exile. It happened in France during the Second World War. Yeah. The French government fell, and the government moved out. In fact, the Nazi Germany created a Vichy regime inside France. And the government was now a government in exile, operating from Britain. And they came back and they defeated the Allies, the Axis powers that were the combination of Germany, Italy, and Japan. They still won the war. So the dynamics are not things that you can just project overnight. And that is why I did say just now that the Russians are going to be very, very careful about pushing this narrative to the point where other European powers will bring ground troops into Ukraine. Because if you start spilling the blood of other European nationals, they react not as collateral damage, as combatants this time. Once they become combatants, it is now an escalation of war. You are now going to be fighting not one country, and those countries still have their arms that they have not brought out. So Russia will not be fighting a many-pronged battle. Russia will not want that. And if you fight a many-pronged battle, Russia's friends and allies will join. That's a third world war. It will just escalate. So the Russians are actually waiting for America to bring in troops. America will not bring in troops. The Americans are not that stupid. They will be very smart. They will rather push other European powers to send in ground troops into Ukraine. Because they know Russia is waiting for them to bring in their troops. America will not do that. They will give you all the support, but they will not bring in their troops. If it was a third world country where they can prance up and down, they will send in their troops to go and do what we call evacuation, extraction, and the rest. That's possible. Now it is Russia that has entered into Ukraine. If not any day, America will demonize Russia to the maximum. And Russians are already losing the propaganda argument. Okay, you will be here for what have you achieved now? You are trying to dismember a country that you could have dealt with without dismembering the country. Because there are other options you could have used. Even the part in Kherson, in Kharkov that you claimed before, the Ukrainians were able to fight you and take it back. It's only Donbass. Donbass is not strategic, it's not critical. If it was affecting Mariupol, where they were exporting grain, that is where the fight was. And they were able to get it back. So if you are looking at, you can actually win part of the battle. You have not won the war. It's a long drawn-out war. The Americans were able to drive the Viet Cong people into the countryside. They pummeled and used napalm, used all. They couldn't use nuclear weapons. That was why they lost that war. The Viet Cong told them, we will not give up our country. It took America years of war, more than 5 years long, to be in Vietnam. Did they win? In fact, the unfortunate is that that's why America is having a drug problem today, because American soldiers that were going to Vietnam became addicts. They became addicts. And the drug culture now entered America. Americans are still fighting drug culture today. So we don't know what Russians are doing. The infection the Russians are doing they were fighting for years to set their own. So it's very risky. It's not just to start fighting big politics. No, there are consequences. There are collateral damages that you will suffer that you will not take years to try and recover from.
Yes.
That's why the Americans quickly pulled out from Afghanistan. They quickly saw that thing building again. They just left Afghanistan. Let these people face their problems.
Okay, before calling it a wrap on this show, how long do you think this war would take, Barrister? How long? Because it's like 2 years and counting. Is that
just as I rightly said, the war will be determined in a very short time, in the terms that
how short is this time?
With the way the war is going, the allies, by the time they intervene, because just as my brother here rightly said, they were going to intervene, and when they intervene, parties might be made to look at it from another angle, completely from this conventional war as it is. Maybe issues might be brought before a round table where it will not be addressed, and then the parties will look at it objectively and see if it's what they will concede to. But if that is not done, I see the war going on, because the allies are there and they will continue to support their own, and they will not want to give in, because one way or the other, they have one thing to benefit at the end of the day, because that is what it's all about. America will want to continue at least show that they are superpower. Those who are supporting Russia will want to support Russia, believing that Russia being one of the superpowers too, they will be there for them at the time they needed them. Iran has always been there, and Russia was supporting them. South Africa here in Africa is supporting Russia. You have some other African countries too who tends to get towards, because of what they tend to do. Even Niger and others. At the point in time, I heard that Niger and others want to support because
Russia,
of Russia, because they feel with the crisis going on in Niger and some of these African countries where the military has taken over, they will want to see that they are part of the Russian. But be that as it may, it is not going to be an easy one for Russia, because they cannot easily overrun the Ukrainians. It is going to be a long battle, but only God knows when it will come to an end.
So can one say it's a non-end war? Is just going to continue through to eternity, or they're going to talk to war like the US from Afghanistan or Vietnam?
It's not
briefly,
it's not going to be an endless war. It will not also be possible for us as we sit here to say a year, 2 weeks, 2 months. No. I did say at the beginning of this discussion that the best generals know when war will start. They could not tell you exactly when the war will end. This war is not going to end as a military victory. It's going to be a diplomatic and political solution that will end the war. That is why, as my co-discussant has just alluded, they will have to come to a round table. Words remain. It is negotiation that will end this war. The Russians will not win by virtue of the fact that they don't have the ability to use nuclear weapons. But by conventional means, they will not win. And let me quickly mention this. Russia is losing face to China. By the time Russia is now waiting for China to help, not necessarily help, China is now interceding and saying, oh, Russia, you come back to the table, or no, we are on your side. Russia is a big power.
All right.
It will not be easy for her to just step back. I mentioned just now that they are looking for what we can call an excuse for somebody to intervene. The conflict in Gaza is one such opportunity that can make that of Ukraine end. It will also likely enlarge the scope of operation in Ukraine, because as they are going to Gaza, Russians will say, oh, you have not pulled out of Gaza, we are not pulling out of Ukraine. You are not tying a matter to another matter. So it can become a long drawn out matter. It can also become easier to reduce to the barest minimum if the parties are willing to look at a military, they are going to look at a diplomatic and political solution, not a military solution.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. So the war rages on.
For now, the war rages on.
So there may just be an end in sight.
Sure.
But we don't know when it's going to stop.
The truth is that you cannot determine when it will come.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. You've heard them, 2 years and counting, no end in sight. We keep watching, we keep praying, we keep just hoping against all hope that peace will come between these two countries. Come on, there's no gain in war. Men, materials, resources, all been used up in war, and still the battle rages on. I'll just report back to you on what is happening globally on this platform, International Forum. See you next Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.